Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. We're going to fill out this worksheet, this beautiful Doodle Notes worksheet, and you're going to need 3 colors today and your pencil. So I'm going to be using green, orange, and pink for mine. You can choose whatever colors you want, but we're going to use these to try to stay consistent. So we're going to be focusing on trig ratios, and the way these notes are designed is that like as you're listening to me or as I'm talking, like you can color and make these look nice. I probably won't take the time to color a whole lot during the video, but you can always color along, and then when you're done you can decorate yours. So this yellow, this is actually green, not yellow. You can kind of see it looks green there. Alright, so trig ratios is what we're going to be talking about. Please make sure you have your name. So I'm going to put my name here, and then put what block you have right there, because we're going to have lots of these. My kids from last year are using these in the beginning of Math 3, and we're very thankful for them, so make sure you do a good job. So trig ratios are 4. The whole reason why we care about them is it's for finding side lengths, L-E-N, side lengths, and for finding missing angles. Missing angle measurements. Oops, I'm going to write that underneath there. And right triangles. Right triangle. And if you were in class on Monday, that's what we were doing. So again, we're finding side lengths and we're finding angle measurements. And it has to be a right triangle or this does not work. So I'm just going to kind of decorate a little bit. Side lengths and angle measurements. And it has to be in a right triangle. So remember, right triangles are the ones that looks like this with a right angle in there. Has to be a right triangle or this doesn't work. So yesterday we did all these ratios, and we were actually finding, without telling you, with the different ratios of the 3 functions, sine, cosine, and tangent. And remember I had you draw the right triangle, and then we labeled everything. So we're going to draw in this bottom corner right here of the sine box. There's our right angle across. This is my hypotenuse. This is angle theta, and so this says sine of theta. So this is the angle that I care about, my reference angle. And so my hypotenuse is always across the right triangle. Theta is across from the triangle. This is my opposite side. And then the side that's touching theta is my adjacent side. So here's where my colors are going to come from. So this sine is called theta. That's how you say that. And so I'm going to have my hypotenuse. Every time I use hypotenuse in these notes, I'm going to talk about pink. So that's my hypotenuse. And then I'm going to use green. Actually, I'm going to use orange for my opposite every time. And I'm going to use green for my adjacent every time. So I have my hypotenuse, my opposite, and my adjacent. And then this is theta. And so maybe I'll use this like blue color here to show you this is theta. So again, remember you're always going to be looking for theta is what we're referring to when we decide opposite and adjacent. So when I do the sine of theta, I'm doing the opposite side. So whatever the length is of the opposite side, and then I'm dividing that by the hypotenuse. And so this is what I do when I find my sine of theta. So whatever that angle measurement is, it equals the ratio of the opposite over the hypotenuse. So my opposite is orange, and my hypotenuse is pink. So I'm going to color this sine with the pink and the orange, just so that the colors go together. And then like same thing down here, I have S-I-N-E. I'm going to just color code it. Your brain actually will remember things better with the color coding, believe it or not. So decorate that however you want. So we're going to write we use the sine, because you have to decide when do we use sine, cosine, and tangent. So we're going to use when we are working with the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Opposite side and the hypotenuse. So opposite side, you can put of theta there because that kind of helps you. Opposite side of theta and the hypotenuse. So I'm going to put that theta in blue. Remember that in this case, that's my theta there. And then it's my opposite, which is orange. So it's the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So there's this like function on your calculator, which I'll be teaching you how to use. And so you're going to hit sine of whatever this degree is, and then it equals, and it's going to give you a number, and that number is what actually equals when you go opposite divided by hypotenuse. So that's sine, is when we are looking at the ratio of the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The next one is cosine, and so cosine we're going to use when, so let's put a little note here, we're going to use this when we're working with the hypotenuse again. Hypotenuse and the side adjacent to angle theta. So again, we have angle theta was that blue one. So we're not going to draw this triangle again, but I'm still referring to this triangle up here in the sine box. So if you want to draw like an angle up here to show you that, you can. So I'm going to be using the hypotenuse, which is my pink. And then this time, it's the adjacent side to theta. So there's theta, adjacent side to theta. And so my cosine of theta equals the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And so again, hypotenuse is pink, adjacent is yellow, or actually in this case it's actually green, but looks yellow. And so again, I'm going to put my cosine in here with my colors. And then I'm going to color it over here. So you can color it, just get the colors connected to it. Make it look pretty. Okay, so we use cosine if we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse side that we're working with. And then if we don't have the hypotenuse, we have the other two sides, then we're going to use tangent. And so tangent, we're going to use when working with the adjacent and opposite sides to angle theta. So again, angle theta is that blue angle that we showed at the top of the right triangle. And so our ratio is tan of theta equals the opposite side divided by your adjacent side. And so again, my adjacent side is green, and my opposite side is orange. And so I'm going to color my tangent with orange and green. Alright, and then my theta I'm going to put in my blue color again. Okay, So those are the three different ratios that we have. We have sine, cosine, and tangent. And so I remember this by this phrase, and there's all kinds of appropriate and inappropriate ways to remember this, but the way that I remembered and was taught was so. So it's S-O-H, so write this on top of your paper. So-ka, not so-to. So-ka, C-A-H, and TOA, T-O-A. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So let's use our colors. Remember, the hypotenuse in our colors has been pink. So I'm going to put the H's in pink. And then I'm going to put my opposite has been in orange. So I'm going to put this in orange. And then my yellow has been my adjacent, or my green. And then I'm going to use the theta color we've been using, this blue, for the sine, because it's sine of theta, cosine of theta, and tangent of theta. So another way that I started writing this that's helped me and a lot of other students is these are actually ratios, right? It's one over the other. So I can remember this as the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. And so I'm going to actually write that, O and H. And then the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So it still has a so-ka. And then TOA is tangent, is the opposite over the adjacent. So you'll see me actually like writing this out. I did this earlier today actually in one of my classes because I forget sometimes, and this is how I remember. So there's my those, and then my opposite is my orange again. All right. So however you want to write these down to remember them is up to you, but you have to have them memorized. You have to have memorized how to find opposite and adjacent and hypotenuse. You have to do that every time. And you need to write this out to help you know which ratio you're going to use depending on what is given to you. So you'll see me on the next video doing that. But these are what the three are and how you know which one you have to use. So again, we have our sine of theta we use when working with the opposite side of theta and the hypotenuse. And that looks like sine of theta equals opposite and hypotenuse. Theta is going to be measured in degrees. So this is some kind of degree. Okay, so it's degrees. So like 32 degrees or 45 degrees or 60 degrees. You'll have a degree number there. So sine of theta equals the opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of theta, let's make this be in blue, equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So when we have the adjacent to theta and the hypotenuse, we're going to use the cosine. And tangent is when we don't know the hypotenuse and we have to do the opposite over the adjacent, like that. Okay, so the next video we're going to practice. So you can go ahead and go on to video number 2 for this handout. Bye-bye.